Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're tackling something I think we've all had to deal with at some point, bullying. You all sent in this guide called How to Deal with Bullies, Coping Methods and Empowerment Tips. And honestly, some of the strategies in here really surprised me.
Oh, yeah.
Like, did you know that bullies are statistically way more likely to pick on someone who's alone? It makes you think about, how important it is to have your people.
It really does.
But we'll get to that a little bit later first. Let's try to get inside the head of a bully.
Yeah, this guide makes a really interesting point about this, and I think it's a point that can be incredibly empowering. Bullies are often really unhappy people. They're basically trying to spread that unhappiness around, trying to make other people feel as bad as they do.
So wait, are you saying that it's not even really about the victim at all? That's kind of mind-blowing.
Exactly. It's more about what's going on inside the bully's head than anything inherently wrong with you.
Okay, so their behavior is like a symptom of their own problems, not like a judgment on the person that they're bullying. I can see how understanding that could help someone feel less personally attacked.
That's right. And the guide goes even deeper than that. There's research that's pointed to, the fact that bullies often lack certain social skills. They haven't learned how to manage their own emotions or build healthy relationships, so they resort to aggression and control to try to feel better about themselves.
Wow, that really adds another layer to this whole thing. It's like
Yeah.
they're stuck in this negative cycle.
Yeah.
But knowing this, how do we actually deal with them? Like, how do we handle these situations?
Well, that's where this guide gets really practical.
Yeah.
And it offers a whole bunch of different strategies, both internal and external strategies.
Okay, let's dive into some of those then. I'm really curious to see what they recommend.
Yeah.
What about those external strategies, the things that we can actually do or say in the moment when it's happening?
Well, one that might surprise you is using humor.
Humor, really? I wouldn't have thought of that. So, like, are we talking about firing back with insults?
No, not at all. It's more about using, wit to deflect the negativity and show that their words don't have power over you. The guide emphasizes that this kind of humor shouldn't be mean-spirited. It's about keeping your composure and not giving the bully the satisfaction of seeing you upset.
Okay, I'm starting to see how that could work. It's like you're taking the sting out of their words by not taking them seriously.
Yeah.
What if humor just isn't your thing? Like, what if the situation feels too intense for jokes?
Well, in that case, the guide suggests another tactic, the power of no. And they're not talking about a hesitant or unsure no. It's about a firm, confident no. That clearly establishes your boundaries and stops them in their tracks.
You know what? I love the simplicity of that. Sometimes the most direct approach is the most effective.
Exactly. And if the bully keeps going, the guide recommends a technique they call neutralizing language.
Okay, what's that all about?
Yeah.
I've never heard that before.
It's basically a way of describing what the bully is doing without getting emotional. So you're taking away their power by not engaging with them on an emotional level.
So, like, if someone says your outfit is ridiculous, how would you use this neutralizing language thing?
You could say something like, "You're saying that you don't like my outfit. That's fine. But it's not okay to talk to me like that."
Wow, that's brilliant. You're acknowledging what they said, but you're not letting them get to you. You're calling them out on their behavior, but in a calm way.
Exactly. And the guide has a ton of examples like this, showing how to adapt this technique to different types of bullying. But it's not just about these external strategies. This guide also really emphasizes the importance of building up your inner strength as well.
That makes sense. I mean, you can't always control what other people do, but you can control how you react.
Exactly. And that's where self-confidence comes in. When you believe in yourself and your worth, a bully's words are less likely to get to you. It just rolls off your back.
I'm guessing this guide has some tips on how to actually build that self-confidence.
Oh, it does. One of the key recommendations is using daily affirmations. Basically, reminding yourself of your strength and all the things that you like about yourself. Sounds really simple, but it can have a huge impact on how you see yourself.
I've heard about this before, but I've never actually tried it. Do you think it really works?
Absolutely. Think about it. We're constantly bombarded with negative messages, not just from other people, but also from our own minds. So daily affirmations are a way to counteract that negativity with positive messages. It's like giving yourself a dose of healthy self-talk.
Okay, so it's not just about ignoring the negative. It's about actively replacing it with positive reinforcement.
Yes, exactly.
What else does this guide suggest for building inner strength?
Well, another powerful technique is cultivating gratitude. This means taking the time to focus on the good things in your life, even the small things, and expressing appreciation for them.
Gratitude. I can see how that could shift your mindset to a more positive place.
Yeah.
But how does that help with dealing with a bully?
Well, when you're feeling grateful for all the good things in your life, it's harder to get bogged down by negativity. It's like you're building up this shield of positivity that deflects all the bad stuff.
So it's not just about feeling good. It's about changing the way you perceive and react to negativity. I like that. It's like training your mind to focus on the positive.
Exactly.
We've talked about understanding bullies using external tactics like humor and wah,
Hmm.
and building that inner strength through affirmations and gratitude. It feels like we've covered a lot already.
We have, and there's still so much more to get to.
You're right. And before we move on, I just want to emphasize something for everyone listening. You don't have to go through this alone. This guide really stresses the importance of seeking support from people that you trust, parents, teachers, counselors, anyone you feel comfortable talking to.
Absolutely.
Remember that statistic we mentioned earlier about bullies targeting people who are alone? Well, having a strong support system is like the antidote to that.
It really is.
Friends, family, classmates who have your back, they all contribute to creating a sense of safety and belonging. And if a bully sees that you have people who care about you and will stand up for you, they're less likely to target you in the first place.
That's right.
Strength in numbers, right?
Strength in numbers. But this guide doesn't just stop at seeking support. It talks about something really inspiring, breaking the cycle of bullying.
You mean like becoming an ally for others who are being bullied?
Yes, exactly.
By offering kindness, encouragement, a listening ear. You can make a huge difference in someone's life. It's like turning your own experience into something positive by helping others.
Yes, and it reinforces that sense of community support. When we stand up for each other, bullies lose their power.
This is all really great stuff. I'm impressed with this guide.
Mhm.
Before we wrap up this first part of our deep dive, I want to highlight one more thing that really resonated with me. This guide emphasizes that seeing bullies for who they really are, sad, angry people who are hurting inside, can be incredibly freeing. It doesn't excuse their behavior, but it can help you to not take it so personally.
That's a crucial point. When you can understand that a bully's actions are often driven by their own pain and insecurity, it's so much easier to rise above their negativity. It doesn't mean you have to feel sorry for them, but it helps you to see them as a complex human being rather than a one-dimensional villain.
And that shift in perspective can be so empowering.
It really can. It allows you to reclaim your own power and focus on your own well-being instead of letting the bully control your emotions.
Okay, I think that's a great place to pause for now.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot in this first part of our deep dives. We explored the motivations behind bullying, learned some practical strategies for dealing with it in the moment, and touched on the importance of building both inner strength and a supportive community.
And in the next part, we'll dive even deeper into those strategies and give more specific examples of how to use those techniques in real-life situations.
I'm looking forward to that. But before we move on, I want to leave you with a question to think about. What's one small act of kindness or support that you could offer someone who might be facing a bully today? It doesn't have to be a grand gesture, just a simple act of reaching out and letting them know that they're not alone.
Yeah, it's amazing how even a small gesture can make such a big difference.
Absolutely. And that idea of shifting perspective, it really ties into what we're going to talk about this next part of our deep dive. We've talked about understanding bullies and some initial ways to react. But this guide goes even further.
It does.
It's like it gives you a mental toolkit for handling those tough encounters.
Yeah, and the first tool we're going to pull out of that toolkit might seem surprisingly simple. Confident body language.
Okay, I have to admit, when I first read that, I was a little skeptical. How much of a difference can standing up straight really make?
You'd be surprised. Bullies often target people who seem vulnerable or unsure of themselves. So projecting confidence can actually disrupt that whole dynamic. It's about sending a nonverbal message that says, I'm not an easy target.
So it's like you're setting a boundary before you even say anything.
Exactly. Think about it when you walk with your head held high, making eye contact, speaking in a clear and steady voice. You're projecting this aura of self-assurance. It might not make the bully go away, but it can definitely throw them off balance.
I can see how that could be really effective. That like you're flipping the script.
Yeah.
They expect you to shrink back, but instead you're standing tall.
Right. And this leads perfectly into another tool from our toolkit, assertiveness.
Assertiveness. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Is this where we start talking about those verbal boundaries we touched on earlier?
You got it. Assertiveness is all about clearly communicating your limits, what you will and will not tolerate. This guide gives some great phrases to use, like, stop it, I don't like that, or don't talk to me that way.
I think what trips a lot of people up, though, is knowing how to say those things with confidence.
Yeah, that's where practice comes in. It might feel awkward at first, but the more you practice setting those boundaries, the more natural it will become. And something this guide really emphasizes is consistency. If you set a boundary and the bully crosses it, you need to follow through.
So it's not enough to just say the words. You have to back them up with action.
Exactly. Otherwise, your words don't mean anything.
Okay.
Now, this next tactic might seem a little counterintuitive, but the guide suggests trying to use empathy when dealing with a bully.
Empathy, really. I'm going to be honest, that seems like the last thing I'd want to do when someone's being mean to me.
I know it sounds strange, but the guide explains that it can be a really effective way to de-escalate a situation.
Okay. I'm intrigued. How do you actually empathize with someone who's being a jerk?
Well, it's not about condoning their behavior. It's about trying to understand where it's coming from.
Yeah.
Remember we talked about how bullies are often really unhappy people. They might be dealing with their own problems.
So it's about recognizing their humanity, even if you don't agree with their actions.
Exactly. It doesn't mean you have to be their friend or excuse what they're doing. It's just about acknowledging that they're a complex person, not just some one-dimensional villain. And sometimes just that shift in perspective can be enough to disarm them. It kind of takes away their power when they realize you're not reacting with anger or fear, but with understanding.
I'm starting to see how that could be really powerful. But I imagine there are situations where empathy might not be the bank approach. Like, what if you actually feel threatened or unsafe?
You're absolutely right. Empathy is a tool, not a magic solution. And your safety always comes first. This guide is very clear about that. In fact, one of the most practical and effective pieces of advice it offers is simply removing yourself from the situation.
So sometimes the best strategy is just to walk away.
Exactly. You don't have to engage with a bully if you don't feel safe. You have the right to remove yourself from that situation.
I think that's a really important point for people to hear. Walking away isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of self-respect.
I couldn't agree more. It's about choosing a different way to address the problem, one that prioritizes your well-being.
As we're talking about all these different strategies, I'm realizing how much of this comes down to mindset.
It really does. It's not just about what you do or say. It's about how you think and feel about yourself.
And that's where this guide's emphasis on challenging negative self-talk comes in, right?
Exactly. It's about becoming aware of those negative thoughts that pop up when you're being bullied, like I'm worthless or it's all my fault, and consciously replacing those thoughts with more positive ones.
So it's like retraining your brain to focus on the positive even when things are tough.
Yes. And remember those daily affirmations we talked about earlier. That's a great way to do this. It's all about feeding your mind with those positive messages to counteract the negative ones.
It's like you're building up this shield of self-worth to protect yourself from those hurtful words.
Exactly. The stronger that shield is, the less power a bully has over you.
You know, I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together. It's like a multi-layered approach. You've got the external strategies, the internal mindset work, and then that importance of community support.
It's a holistic approach, isn't it? And speaking of community support, this guide emphasizes over and over again that you don't have to go through this alone. There's strength in numbers. And reaching out to trusted adults can make a world of difference.
And remember, asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength. It takes courage to admit that you need support.
Absolutely. And those adults can be incredible allies. They can offer guidance, they can advocate for you, and they can help you navigate this whole situation.
And sometimes just having someone to talk to who understands what you're going through can be so helpful.
It really can. And remember, building a support network isn't just about receiving support, it's also about giving support. You know, this guide encourages you to be an ally to other people who might be facing bullying.
I love that. It's about taking something negative and turning it into a force for good.
Exactly. It's about using your own voice and experience to create a more positive and supportive environment for everyone.
I think that's a really powerful message to end this part of the deep dive on. We've covered a lot of ground, from confident body language and assertiveness
Yeah.
to empathy and knowing when to walk away.
And we've talked about how important it is to cultivate a positive mindset, challenge those negative thoughts, and build a strong support system.
This has been such an insightful conversation about how to not just survive bullying, but how to thrive in spite of it.
It really has.
And in the next part, we're going to shift our focus to the long-term process of healing and growth. I'm really looking forward to that. But before we get there, I want you to take a moment and think about what's resonated with you the most from this conversation. What's one thing you'll take away from this?
For me, it's that reminder that even in the face of bullying, we have so much more power than we realize. We have the power to choose how we respond. We have the power to set boundaries. And we have the power to cultivate inner strength.
So we've explored all these tools and tactics for dealing with bullies, like right then and there. But what about the aftermath? Even after the bullying stops, it can still leave a mark, right?
You're absolutely right. This guide doesn't shy away from the fact that healing from bullying takes time and effort. It's a process.
So where do we even begin with that process? What does this guide recommend?
Well, one of the first steps, and this is a crucial one, is to cultivate self-compassion.
Okay, self-compassion. I've heard that term before, but I'm not sure I totally get it. Like, what does that actually look like?
Well, think of it this way. If a friend came to you and said they were being bullied, you wouldn't judge them or tell them to just get over it, right?
No, of course not. I'd want them to know that it's okay to feel hurt and that
I
they're not alone.
Exactly. And that's the same kind of compassion that we need to show ourselves. Recognize that we're human, that we're allowed to feel those difficult emotions, and that it's okay to take time to heal.
Yeah, I think that can be so hard for people, especially if they've internalized some of that negativity from the bully. It's like they start to believe those things about themselves, even if they know it's not true.
Absolutely. And that's why this guide emphasizes the importance of challenging those beliefs. Recognizing when those negative thoughts come up, those thoughts like, I'm not good enough or it's all my fault, and actively replacing them with more positive and realistic thoughts.
I see how that connects back to the affirmations we talked about. Like it's a continuation of that positive self-talk,
Yeah,
but on an even deeper level.
exactly. It's about shifting from self-blame to self-acceptance. It's a journey, and it doesn't happen overnight, but it's a huge part of healing.
This guide really seems to get that healing isn't just about time. It's about doing the work.
It really is. And along with self-compassion, the guide really emphasizes patience. You're not going to undo the effects of bullying right away. It's important to give yourself the time and space to heal.
You know, one of the things that stood out to me in this section of the guide was the idea of finding meaning in the experience. At first, that sounded a little weird to me. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Like, can you really find something positive in something as negative as bullying?
I think so. It's not about minimizing the pain or pretending it didn't happen. It's about recognizing that even those tough experiences can teach us valuable lessons and help us grow.
So it's about looking for the silver lining. Like maybe you discovered a new strength you didn't know you had.
Exactly. Or maybe you developed a deeper sense of empathy for others who have been through something similar.
It's like you're reframing the experience. It's not something that broke you, but something that you learned from and grew from.
And those insights can be so powerful. They can help you move forward with a new sense of purpose and a new sense of resilience.
Speaking of moving forward, this guide also talks about the importance of forgiveness. And honestly, that's where I get stuck. How can you forgive someone who hurt you, especially if they never even apologized?
Yeah, that's a tough one, but the guide makes a really important point here. Forgiveness is not about condoning what the bully did or letting them off the hook. It's about you. It's about freeing yourself from that anger and resentment.
So it's about me, not them.
Exactly. It's about letting go of the negativity so you can move on with your life. You don't have to forget what happened or be friends with them. It's just about releasing yourself from that burden.
I like this, like you're breaking free from the past and reclaiming your own power.
It is, and it's not easy. But this guide offers some really helpful ways to work through those feelings and get to a place of forgiveness.
You know, as we wrap up this deep dive, I think it's important to remember that sometimes these self-help strategies aren't enough. Sometimes we need more support.
You're absolutely right. And this guide actually encourages anyone who's struggling to reach out for professional help. Talking to a therapist can be incredibly valuable as you work through those deeper emotional wounds.
And there's no shame in that at all. It's actually a sign of strength to recognize when you need extra support.
I couldn't agree more. This deep dive has been such a great exploration of this topic.
It really has. We've covered so much, from understanding bullies to finding coping strategies to figuring out how to heal in the long run.
And this guide's message of empowerment has been so clear throughout this whole conversation. It reminds you that you're not powerless. You have the power to choose how you respond. You have the strength to overcome adversity. And you deserve to live a happy and fulfilling life.
That's such a powerful message, and I hope it sticks with everyone listening.
Me too. And I hope this conversation inspires you to take another look at this guide and really explore these ideas.
Remember, you're not alone. There are people who care about you. There are resources available, and there are strategies that can help you through this, so you can come out stronger on the other side.
Well said.
And with that, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time for another insightful conversation.